Picture frames are a great way to show off an image, and today I'm going to show you how to make them. So let's jump right into Blender and get started. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my Images as Planes add-on is enabled. This will allow us to import an image as a plane inside of Blender. So, now that we've done that, we're going to delete the default cube and add an image as a plane. And I'm going to use this little Christmas light render that I made. And you can see our scene is very dark at the moment. So I am going to drag in this little light right here so that we can see what things look like in rendered mode. And that's looking a lot better. So far, as you can see, our picture frame is not very interesting right now. That might be because it doesn't exist. So, in edit mode, we're going to drag out the image just a little bit so that when we add a wall behind it, it's not intersecting with the wall. And then we'll extrude the image and right click so it doesn't go anywhere, and then scale it up. And you'll notice that because the extrusion left an extra face, our image is doing something a little fuzzy right now. This is what would have happened if we had let it intersect with the wall. But to fix it, just press X and delete faces. And now that we've done that, let's select this edge loop and scale it out on the Z-axis so that it's a little more square-shaped around the borders. Now that we've done that, let's add a loop cut around here. And what this loop cut is for is most picture frames have a little paper border between the image and the frame. This is called a passepartout. This is also what the black area around the camera is called, is a passepartout. So now that we've done this, let's start with modeling the frame. To do that, let's select these two edge loops, extrude them both out just a little bit, then deselect this loop, and extrude it out a little bit more. And then we can delete this edge loop here. And something weird is going on with our normals, so to fix that, press A and Control N to recalculate the normals. And just to make our scene a little easier to see, I'm going to turn on matte cap and ambient occlusion. And here's what our picture frame looks like so far. This is not quite what we were going for. So let's add two new material slots. We'll call this one Paper for the passepartout, and then we'll call this one Frame for the frame. Now let's select this little frame loop right here, and that one, and assign the paper material to those. And then take these three face loops here, 1, 2, 3, and assign the frame material to these. And now this is looking a little bit more interesting. If you're going for a more simple or modern frame, you can just leave it the way it is right now, and that'll work pretty well. I'm going to make it a little bit more interesting. I'm going to add a bunch of edge loops, switch to vertex mode, extrude them inwards, and then select this interior loop, turn on proportional editing, set the fall off to sharp, and then drag it along the x-axis and keep shrinking the radius until we've got it just right. I think right. Let's see. right about there looks pretty good. Maybe I'll actually pull it out. Yeah, that looks pretty nice. And then I will Control B and bevel this edge just to make it smoother. That looks pretty nice. And now that we've done this, our frame model is complete. If you want to make these little edges a little bit smaller, you can select each of these loops and then press Control B and bevel them each a few times. And that'll make them a little bit smoother without a need for smooth shading. Now that we've done that, let's unwrap our frame so that we can texture it. So first let's hide our image face, and then select this face loop and just press U and unwrap. And we can do that for the rest of these. There we go. And now that our frame is unwrapped, we can start adding materials to it. As a matter of fact, let's smoothen these edge loops right here. Go to Edge Select, and bevel the edges. Just like that. And that's looking pretty good. As one final step in the model making process, just to fix these sharp edges right around there, let's add a bevel modifier, crank up the segments. Depending on your frame, you might want to mess around with the width, but I think it looks pretty good right now. So that looks pretty nice. Now, let's drag this up, split the window, and set this to the node editor. Select our frame material, and get started. The first thing I'm going to do is delete the diffuse shader, and replace it with a principled shader. And this is looking pretty nice so far. And to use our texturing, I'm going to add a noise texture and a texture coordinate node, and plug in the UV input, and plug the factor into the base color. And this is looking pretty nice, because, as we'll see, it's mapping correctly to everything, and we have a seam along the edge, which is what you'd see in the wood pattern of a real picture frame. Now that we've done that, let's add a vector mapping node, and set the scale along the x-axis to about 2, just to stretch it out. And then let's turn up the scale on the noise texture to 10, set the detail to 5, and set the distortion to 1, just to make it a little more interesting. Now that we've done all that, we will add a color ramp. And here's what it looks like so far. Let's play with the colors a bit and see what we get. I'm going to make kind of a woody texture, so I'm going to increase the detail. I'm going to set this black color stop to kind of a dark orange, which looks like brown, and then I'll set this one up here to a kind of tan or peach color. Next, in the middle, I'll add a more orangey one, make that a little darker, and I'll set the interpolation to B-spline and bring this a little bit closer to the right. And that looks really nice. Now that we've done that, let's add another color ramp. Plug this into the roughness. Let's set our black to be kind of gray, and our white to be lighter gray. And that's a little too sharp, so I'm going to increase the brightness on both of these, and that will make our reflections rougher. And that looks like a really nice picture frame. If that's all you were looking for, you can be done, or you can stay with us while we add the wall. First thing I'm going to do for the wall is I'm actually going to select this edge loop here, and set selection to cursor offset, so that this way, the back of our frame will be touching the wall when we add it. And now let's add a plane RY90 and scale it up. That looks pretty good. And here's how our image looks so far. Now these shadows don't look super realistic, so to fix that we can select the lamp and then we can increase the size. I'm going to set it to 1, and that'll just give us some nice softer shadows. And it'll make it look quite a bit better. Yeah, we'll drag it down on the Z a bit. And now that we've done that, we're almost done. We can add a material to our wall. And I'm just going to call it wall. Replace the diffuse shader with a principled shader. And let's add a noise texture, a vector bump node, plug the factor into the height, and then plug the normal into the normal. Now, you can see not very much changes on our wall, and this is why. Our noise texture is way too big, so we have to scale it down. I'm going to set our scale to 500 and see if that makes it small enough. And that's just about perfect. That's a perfect size for our noise. So I'm going to set our distortion to something like 0.5, just to make it a little more interesting, and then set the detail to 4. And then we can set the distance for our bump node to 0.05 to make it a little less distinct, and set our strength to 0.5. And now our wall material looks very nice. If you want to make your wall look more interesting, you can change the color. I'm going to set mine to a pale blue. That looks pretty good. And now to arrange our camera, just go to the camera view and press Shift F to enter fly mode. And then just arrange the camera in front of the image. You can snap the camera to this position, but making it there with the fly mode just makes it look more natural. And at this point, you should save your image and hit render. Our rendering is complete. We can see that this final image looks pretty nice. If you want to save it, just press F3 and save it somewhere. I'm going to call this render 2. And that looks pretty good. Thanks for watching this tutorial. If you want to see a tutorial for how to make some of the images I've placed in frames here, then ask for one down in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like it, then press the subscribe button. And thank you for watching.